Okay, let's get this Excel demo underway. So if you navigate in the boxplot workbook to the boxplots sheet, you can see that I have quite a bit of data here. And this is all data that I use to create, if you go over here to the far right, the actual box plot from our data set for product 018. I have a pocket price box plot created by region for this given product. And probably the best example here, if you look at the Pacific Northwest, it's the one region that has a clearly defined bottom and top of the box. The orange, which is your 25th percentile to 50th percentile, and the gray, which is your 50th percentile to 75th percentile. Now, keep in mind that with each of these other regions that don't have both the top and bottom of the box, that just means that whatever color that you do not see, it is actually all crunched together right there with the median, with that purple line in this chart. So for instance, here for the custom, the fact that you do not see a bottom orange 25th percentile to 50th percentile box means that it is just neck and neck with that median. So you actually have 25% of your revenue, because these box plots are weighted by revenue, you have 25% of your revenue all right there at that median. So it just means that it's very compressed. And the same thing goes for all of these that you see. Over here on the right, you can see that the last three are actually missing the top of the box. So they have the bottom 25th to 50th percentile. The 50th to 75th percentile is not displayed. Well, same thing. It's just that top of the box is all compressed. It's all right there at that median. So you have at least 25% of your revenue right there at that single point. So useful to know. And then in some cases, like the South region, you can see that there isn't a box at all, at least not one visualized. What that means is that that entire box, the entire 50th, the middle 50% of revenue for that region, it is all compressed right there with the median. So you actually have at least 50% of your revenue right here where that median is for the South region. You actually have a little more because you'll see that the bottom part of the whisker, that isn't displayed either. If a whisker isn't displayed, it means it's all crunched up. Because the whisker goes down to the 5th percentile, you can add another 20% to that. So pretty much everything from your 5th percentile all the way up to your 75th percentile exists right there at that median, and that's the minimum that exists there. So yeah, very compressed price for that particular region. So let's do just a quick overview. I want to make sure that you have that we start with the end in mind. So you see the visualization that we're working towards creating. There is some data transformation that you have to do with box plots. It's really just because if you want to create fantastic box plots that are in fact weighted by your revenue, you're going to have to go through a couple of steps. But once you know what you're doing, it's a fairly straightforward process. So I'm going to show you the end here. We're going to work our way backwards to the starting point, and then we'll actually walk through that process from start to finish together. But I want to show you this chart. This chart here is actually a stacked column chart. So what is happening here is that each of these boxes, they're actually stacked on top of each other, but you also, let's just pull up this series I have that's called bottom. This bottom value, I actually have a transparent box that is there, and the reason for that, in Excel, when you do create a stacked column chart, it just throws the first value down, and then it throws the next value on top of it, and then the next value, then the next value, for however many values you have. And you just stack those values one on top of the other, right? Well, with this, in order to make sure that our box plot is actually, suspended up in air, that the bottom of the box plot starts at the 25th percentile for that region, you have to put an invisible box there to lift it off the ground, basically, to make sure that it's floating in air at the right point. So that is the purpose of this bottom series I have here. That's just the invisible bottom box. And that bottom, it turns out that it's just right there at your 25th percentile, because that's where you're actually going to start drawing your box. And then above that, there's another series here for your 25th to 50th percentile. And the way that this is formatted with a stacked column chart, you're not putting in the absolute pocket price values there. You are actually putting in the height of your box. So you can see here for the first two, here the custom and Midwest, the values are actually 0 for that. That's why you don't have that orange 25th percentile to 50th percentile box showing up, because for custom and Midwest regions, the value is 0. There is no height there, so it's not actually being drawn in. Moving up, 50th to 75th percentile, same thing. Whatever value you put in there, it's just going to be stacked on top of the bottom part of the box. And once again, it's you're calculating the height of what that price is. So even though, like here in the Midwest, this total height of the gray box is $5.78, even though the very top of the box, right at your 75th percentile, that's coming up almost to $24. That isn't the value you're putting in when you're actually creating the stacked column chart, because you need what the total height of that box is going to be. And then, of course, the median is just simply drawn in as a dash. And then, of course, you have your bottom whiskers and your top whiskers, your error bars, which we'll deal with separately. But this is what the data that actually feeds into your chart looks like. And what this is actually using is just from this table right above it, where the percentiles that you need to create your box plot, the absolute pocket price values for that are calculated in this set of data right here. So for instance, here for the Midwest, you can see the 5th percentile was calculated at being at 1811, as well as the 25th percentile, as well as the 50th percentile. All three of those values are all the same, which is why for the Midwest, you do not have a bottom whisker there. You have everything from your 5th percentile up to your 50th percentile, your median, all at that 1811 point. And it works the same for all of these regions here. You're just simply calculating the 5 percentiles you need to create your box. You can calculate your top whisker, your bottom whisker, and then the heights of the two parts of your box within. Now, where this is all initially coming from here with these percentiles, this is more of a summary table. In order to get to this point, you have to actually calculate for each individual market variable, region in this case, you have to calculate what the total amount of revenue is for that region, and for each of the pocket prices that appear in that region, you need to figure out exactly what's the total percentage of revenue that you have. So you actually have to bring in what the pocket revenue is, and you have to do some calculations with the cumulative amount. So let's see here. Let's just take a look here at custom. The percentage of revenue is right here in column E. And you can see that I just have all the regions organized alphabetically here. So for each one of these actual regions, you'll want to make sure that when you're trying to figure out what the box plot looks like for that region, that you are only concerned with data that comes from that region. So for instance, here with custom, all of the data we have is just here in the 7 rows, all with the region. Here are the pocket prices that are being fed in, and there's a calculation for what the total pocket revenue is at each of those prices, and then you are calculating what the cumulative amount is. And you have to do the cumulative amount starting from the very bottom value and stacking up. I mean, that's just the way that's the same way our percentiles work for these box plots. So you have to figure out what that cumulative amount is, because you're looking at the percentile for the total revenue for that region, correct? And then you take that cumulative amount, express it in terms of percentiles, and then you can start to see exactly how this chart is constructed. Keep in mind that you're actually looking here for where does the 5th percentile exist, because the 5th percentile, that's going to be where the bottom of your whisker is, correct? Well, this very bottom line, and with all of this, you want to get used to thinking in terms of reading from the bottom up, because when you create your box plot using that stacked column chart, you're creating from the bottom up. It stacks up. So you start here with the very first value, and all of these pocket prices, they have all been sorted with the price descending, so that it's showing you the highest value to the lowest value. So we want to go down to the lowest value, and we see that 3.83% of the revenue is at that pocket price. Well, we want the pocket price amount where our 5th percentile of revenue is. Well, that is actually going to come here in the next row, because you can see that the 7.82% of the revenue is at that amount or below. Well, that means that pocket price amount, our 5th percentile will be there, right? Because the first the very bottom 7.8% of the revenue is there. That includes the 5th percentile. So this 1976 amount is the pocket price amount that we want to pull in to actually put in our chart. And you can see here that this summary table that we have that's calculating where the percentiles are based on this cumulative revenue, you can see that for custom, that's exactly what it pulled in here. It pulled in the $19.76, detecting that as the 5th percentile. And you can see that happens all the way up. You go up, after you have your 5th percentile, you need to grab your 25th percentile, then your 50th percentile after. You can see that in this data set, you have to go all the way up to 2210 here on the pocket price to find the amount, find the tier that includes both the 25th percentile, and this also includes the 50th percentile as well. So both the 25th and the 50th percentile will be here at that $22.10, which once again is exactly what's being pulled into our summary table here for the 50th percentile and the 25th percentile. And then just so on, all the way up. Grab the 75th percentile, grab the 95th percentile. Now, the good news is, I completely recognize that there are a lot of steps involved here. But when you take your data set and throw it into an Excel pivot table, it makes this entire process significantly easier because you can sort it by region. You can figure out the tabulations for all of the revenue that's by region, just because it splits it all up into a pivot table or a crosstab. And when you set up your pivot table, it makes it very simple for you to switch from one product to the next. So if you think you're going to be doing a lot of box plots, this is certainly the way to go. Because once you have your pivot table set up, you have all of your formulas figured out in your process, then switching from one product to another becomes significantly easier. And that's what we're looking for here, just a little bit of efficiency. So I will show you how to set up this box plot pivot table from the data set. After we set up that pivot table, we'll pull in the data onto the box plot start sheet, and we will calculate the cumulative percentage of revenue for each of the pocket prices by region. After we do that, we'll identify the 5 percentiles we need by each of the regions in our data set. And then finally, we will take that percentile information and we will organize it into a format that can be fed into an Excel stacked column chart. So now that you have the overview, let's go into the actual details.